The rain poured hard that night, drumming against the windows of a small diner on the edge of town. Inside, under the dim yellow lights and the scent of burnt coffee, sat Ethan, a single dad with tired eyes and calloused hands, wiping down tables long after closing. His little boy, Noah, 6 years old and already half asleep, rested his head on a coloring book in the booth nearby. It had been another long day, 2 part-time jobs, bills piling up, and dreams constantly being pushed to maybe someday. He was used to being invisible. To most people, he was just the quiet man who refilled their coffee and smiled through exhaustion. But that night, fate had decided Ethan wouldn't go unnoticed anymore. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because this story might just remind you that goodness never goes unseen. The bell over the door chimed, and a woman stepped in, shaking off the rain from her coat. She looked too elegant for a place like this, her hair perfectly styled, her heels clicking softly on the floor. Ethan thought she might have walked in by mistake. Her name was Olivia Hart. To the world, she was a billionaire, the owner of one of the most successful tech companies in the country. But tonight, she wasn't the confident CEO the media worshipped. Tonight, she looked afraid. Behind her, a sharply dressed man entered, his voice smooth but filled with pressure. "Come on, Olivia, don't be dramatic. We were having a nice dinner." She didn't answer, only glanced around nervously, as if searching for an escape. The man followed her to a booth, still talking, still smiling in that fake, controlling way that made Ethan's blood heat. He'd seen that look before on men who thought no was just a challenge. Ethan kept cleaning, pretending not to watch, but when Olivia's eyes met his, pleading silently for help, he didn't hesitate. He walked over with a calmness that didn't show the storm inside him. "Hey, honey," he said gently to Olivia, pretending to be her boyfriend. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a mess." Olivia froze, then caught on, nodding quickly. "Oh, there you are," she said softly, relief flickering in her voice. The man's expression shifted from arrogance to confusion. "Who are you?" he snapped. Ethan didn't raise his voice, didn't show anger. He just looked at the man and said firmly, "Someone she clearly wanted to see." "Maybe it's time you left." The stranger scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and stormed out into the rain. The diner felt quieter, safer. Olivia let out a shaky breath and whispered, "Thank you." Ethan just smiled and said, "No one deserves to feel trapped." For a moment, Olivia just stared at him, at his kind eyes, his worn-out uniform, and the gentle way he lifted his son from the booth to take him home. She'd met hundreds of men with power and money, but none with a heart like his. Over the next few days, Olivia couldn't get him out of her mind. She kept replaying that moment, the quiet courage in his voice, the way he stood up for her without expecting anything in return. She wanted to thank him properly, but she didn't even know his last name. So, a few days later, she found herself driving back to that same small diner. Ethan was there, of course, wearing that same faded apron, juggling orders and smiles. When he saw her, surprise crossed his face. "You again," he said with a shy grin. Olivia smiled back, explaining that she just wanted to thank him again and maybe buy him dinner. He almost refused, but she insisted, and eventually, they sat together after his shift. They talked for hours. About his life, his son, the struggles of raising a child alone after his wife passed away from illness. About how he'd given up his dreams to be the father no one needed. Olivia listened with tears in her eyes. She didn't tell him who she was. Not yet. She didn't want him to see the billionaire, she wanted him to see her as a woman who understood loneliness and loss. Days turned into weeks. Olivia began visiting more often, sometimes bringing a toy for Noah, sometimes just a cup of coffee for Ethan during his breaks. The little diner that once smelled of grease and fatigue now felt like something else, like hope. Ethan found himself laughing again, something he hadn't done in a long time. He'd catch himself watching Olivia and wondering why someone like her would choose to spend time in his small world, but there was one thing he didn't know, the secret that could change everything. Olivia wasn't just kind and beautiful. She was one of the most powerful women in the city. And soon, the truth was about to come out. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rain-soaked horizon, Ethan came out of the kitchen to find Olivia sitting with a well-dressed man and woman. They were her assistants, discussing business in hushed tones. On the table lay documents with the Hart Industries logo, one Ethan had seen 1,000 times on the news. His heart dropped. He put the pieces together, the expensive car, the perfect clothes, the quiet confidence. She wasn't just some woman. She was that woman. He felt betrayed. Used. Like he'd been part of some charity project or hidden game. When she tried to explain, he couldn't bring himself to listen. "You should have told me," he said quietly, hurt flashing in his eyes. "I'm just a man trying to make ends meet, Olivia. You don't belong in my world." Olivia wanted to tell him the truth, that she didn't care about worlds, or money, or status, that she'd fallen in love with the man who'd protected her that night without knowing who she was. But Ethan was already walking away. For weeks, the diner felt emptier than ever. Ethan tried to focus on Noah, on work, on survival, but every night he caught himself thinking about her laugh, her warmth, the way she'd looked at him like he mattered. Olivia, too, couldn't shake the ache in her heart. She'd faced boardrooms full of ruthless men, but losing Ethan was the one battle she couldn't win. Then, one day, something changed. Ethan came home to find a letter taped to his door. It wasn't fancy, just plain white paper, handwritten in familiar cursive. It read to Dear Ethan, you once said no one deserves to feel trapped. You freed me that night, not just from a bad date, but from a life where people only saw my name, not my heart. I wanted you to see me, not what I have. You did. That's why I can't stop thinking about you. Please meet me at the diner tonight, just one last time. If you still think we're from different worlds after that, I'll never bother you again." Ethan stared at the letter for a long time, then looked at Noah, who smiled sleepily from the couch. "You should go, Dad," the boy said softly. "You miss her." Kids always knew the truth. That evening, Ethan walked back into the diner, heart pounding. The lights were dimmed, candles flickering on the tables. Olivia stood there, waiting, not in her designer clothes, but in jeans and a simple sweater. She looked real. She smiled through nervous tears. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, his voice breaking. For a long moment, they just stood there, two broken souls who had found something rare, something that neither money nor struggle could buy. Olivia told him she didn't care about status or fame. She wanted a life built on honesty, laughter, and love, the kind she saw between him and his son. Ethan, with tears in his eyes, finally understood. She wasn't trying to rescue him, she wanted to join him. They sat together for hours that night, talking about second chances, about how sometimes the universe brings two people together when they least expect it, a billionaire and a single dad, bound by something far greater than circumstance. Months later, Ethan's life looked different. He still worked hard, but now he did it with a smile. Noah adored Olivia, and their little family began to grow in ways he never imagined. Olivia often said that Ethan had saved her that night, but he always corrected her, "You saved me, too."